being different is a curse. Whether that's because you're more intelligent than average, or you have exceptional critical thinking skills, or maybe just because you have interests and hobbies that are just a little bit outside the box. The world we live in, our society was built by normies for normies. And if you don't like the term normie, then basically all I'm saying is our society is built around conformity. Critical thinking is not rewarded at all. In fact, more often than not, critical thinking is punished in our society. There's actually a strong link between social anxiety and a person's intelligence and critical thinking skills that I never hear anybody talking about, so I will go into more detail on that in just a minute. There are some specific cases where critical thinking might be rewarded, like maybe if you're an engineer or a mathematician or something, and you use your critical thinking to solve a problem in an innovative way, but that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is how when you apply critical thinking skills to the things you hear people say in conversation or what you hear in the mainstream media, if you actually think critically about what you hear and you come to your own conclusions, then most likely you will be punished for it socially. Because there's a whole lot of bullshit out there, and most people just base their beliefs on whatever is the most convenient thing to believe. But the truth isn't always convenient. A lot of times, the truth is painful. It's difficult. It might go against society's collective preconceived notions. So if you actually think about things for yourself, then it's just inevitable that you're gonna have a hard time fitting in unless you just keep your mouth shut or you just outright lie about what you believe. And I'll come back to this later, but I have to mention, this effect is a lot more pronounced in women. Women tend to be a lot more averse to any kind of so-called wrong think than men are. So if you are a true individual, you're a true critical thinker, it is very difficult to connect with women on a deeper level, or really even on a superficial level. Because all it takes is one little slip up, and that's it. You're radioactive. And this is true even if you are a woman yourself. I know people like to say that I'm a raging misogynist or something, but that's really not true. I'm not. I do believe there are women in this world that are intelligent and that they do think for themselves. It's rare, but they do exist. But even for them, it's very difficult to connect with other women. And so for a man, if you are a deep thinker and you don't just automatically accept every little platitude you hear, then it is extremely difficult to attract women. Sure, if you're really good looking, then it probably won't matter much. But for the rest of us, using your brain even just a little bit more effectively than most people, it's gonna get you completely shunned by like 99% of women. And the other 1% probably look like if Shrek and Donkey had a baby. I always hear this phrase. It's a little piece of advice people like to cling to. You just gotta find your tribe. You gotta find your tribe, bro. So the idea is you gotta find a group of like-minded people, and then you can fit in. Then you'll have a social group, and you can have a thriving social life and everything. But it's a lot easier said than done. I think the whole find your tribe thing is actually just really ignorant because for someone that is a true free thinker, it's really just unlikely that you would ever actually encounter more than maybe a few like-minded people in your entire life. And the chances that you could actually become friends with those people when you do encounter them, that's even more unlikely. Because not everyone is eligible for friendship at the time that you meet them. A lot of people, they already have a friend group, or they have a family and everything, or maybe they work all the time. Whatever the reason may be, a lot of people just aren't really open to making new friends at the time that you encounter them. And then also, because free thinkers get shunned in this normie society, most of them are hiding their power level whenever they meet new people. So you might meet someone that could be a member of your tribe, so to speak, but you wouldn't even know it, and they wouldn't know it either, because both of you are masking, trying not to let the other one know what you really think, because you just assume that they'd hate you just like everybody else. And here's something I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about. Being a natural-born free thinker, which is actually the only kind of free thinker there is. Critical thinking isn't something you can learn, by the way. You either have it or you don't. But being a natural-born free thinker, very early on in your life, it puts you on a path toward high inhibition, aka social anxiety, because the shunning starts early, and that has lifelong implications. You know, it has a tragic effect on the entire future of your life. Even as early childhood, your peers notice that you're different. They notice that you don't think like they do. You don't believe all the same things that they believe. You question too many things. And adults notice it too. And let me tell you, when you're a kid that doesn't just automatically accept whatever an adult tells you, some adults really do not like that. So the shunning starts early. The shame starts early. Because naturally, if everybody shuns you or makes fun of you or they exclude you, they just act like they don't want to be around you, and adults scold you for not believing in whatever kind of fairy tales they're trying to push on you at any given time, then naturally, you're probably going to feel ashamed of yourself. A lot of times, you're going to learn to hate yourself, and maybe you'll get over that eventually, but all the years of negative reactions in social situations, naturally, that might result in social anxiety. It might result in a severe level of social anxiety. I think that a person with strong critical thinking skills is also the same type of person that naturally has high inhibition. It just makes sense. If you automatically analyze everything you hear, then you're probably also the type of person to overanalyze your own impulses. Maybe not always, but I'm pretty sure there's a correlation there. So let me know in the comments, if you are a free thinker, do you also struggle with social anxiety? Because I'm pretty sure there is a strong link between the two. I would guess that most people with above average critical thinking skills also have greater than average social anxiety. So y'all let me know if you think I'm onto something with that. I think I am. Okay, so if you have to hide your true beliefs just to avoid offending people, and on top of that, you also probably have social anxiety, how are you supposed to find your tribe? Theoretically, the internet could and should make that easier. It probably is easier to meet like-minded people online, but internet friends aren't real friends. Okay, so that's the problem with that. I know some of you Gen Zers and younger folks aren't going to like this, but internet friends just aren't real. It's not the same. There's certain biological processes and stuff happening in your brain when you physically occupy the same space with someone else and you experience things together. I don't care how realistic your modded GTA roleplay server is you play together with your 4K resolution graphics, ultra enhanced textures with gay tracing, dynamic lighting, whatever, that's not real life. Even if you routinely do video calls together, it's still not the same. Okay, from a biological perspective, you're getting about the same level of bonding there that a monkey gets when it looks at its own reflection in a muddy puddle and screeches. Because with people you know in real life, there's things like mutual accountability, shared acquaintances. Like if you just suddenly ghost your real life friend, then there will probably be some kind of backlash, or it'll impact other people beyond just the two of you. But if you ghost your internet friend, there's pretty much no impact whatsoever. It just doesn't really matter. You'll probably never even think about it again after like 2 days. Okay, so you can't just find your tribe on some random Discord servers or whatever. That's not the same. It's not even close to the same as a person that you have a relationship with in your real life within the same community. That's important, that you actually physically share a community with a person that you have a relationship with. Okay, so internet communities is not the same thing. Okay, I think I've made my point there. So being a free thinker, a person that actually analyzes the information you receive and comes to your own well thought out conclusions, unless you hide your true thoughts, it's pretty much a guarantee in this day and age that you're going to be spending most of your time alone. Or even if you do know some people that will tolerate you, that's all they're doing, tolerating you. And I'm sure you can feel it. Maybe they tolerate you because they're just really lonely otherwise, or maybe it's because they think you might be able to help them get a job later on or something. But whatever the reason is, they're just tolerating you. Being tolerated is the best you can hope for, unless you just pretend to be normal. But that's not always easy. It can actually be really exhausting, always pretending, because being yourself, that's natural. That's more of an automatic process. Masking and trying to act normal, that takes effort, especially because you probably don't always know what normal is. I'm sure you can guess most of the time, but some of the positions that normies hold are so contradictory, it can be hard to even know how to mask effectively. Because if you're a person that thinks about things critically, then the whole process by which you form your opinions is just entirely different from how most people form their opinions. The average person just believes what they believe because they think it's what they're supposed to believe. The normie thought process is like, receive information, then they think, okay, what is the socially acceptable position to have about this? Okay, so that's my position. But the free thinker's thought process is more like, you receive information, you carefully consider all the reasons why that may or may not be true, and that's the key difference. You're seeking the truth. You're not forming your beliefs based on your desire for acceptance. That's what normal people do. But as a free thinker, you're actually seeking the truth. And being a free thinker, critical thinker, whatever you want to call it, it's not a choice. And I don't think it's something you can train yourself to do either. It's not necessarily just genetic. I think there is a nurture component probably. I'm not going to act like I know exactly how it works, but I'm pretty sure it's something that starts early on in your life. Nobody's learning how to think critically in college. I don't care what these universities tell you. They cannot teach you how to think critically. And in most cases, they're not even trying. But just think, when you think about your interactions with normies and the things you hear them say, it just seems so foreign to you, doesn't it? Because it is hard to understand that kind of thought process. Or, I mean, the thought process itself isn't really hard to understand. It's actually pretty simple, but it's hard to understand how a person could actually think that way. And it's probably frustrating to you when you hear somebody just spout off some mimetic talking points and you just know that it's not an original thought that they had. They're just repeating stuff they heard. Probably didn't actually think about it at all. It's frustrating when you see that. It's really frustrating. Well, just how you get frustrated by the normie's thought process, they're frustrated by yours too. To them, when you express an original opinion, it just breaks their normie brain. They're just like, how could he say that? How dare he? Doesn't he know that's sexist, racist, homophobic, etc.? Doesn't he know that's a microaggression? Because the average person is, above all else, they're striving to not upset the herd. You might have that same goal sometimes, just trying to fit in, essentially. And that's why you mask in certain social situations. But most people take that a step further and they actually believe the most convenient beliefs. They don't just quietly, to themselves, form their own original opinions and then mask in public, like what you might do as a free thinker. These people actually just believe the bullshit whole hog. They just believe it. So your thought process is just as foreign and frustrating to them as their thought process is to you. But with all of this said, it is probably better to mask and just hide your power level, so to speak, in most situations. Not always necessarily. Even some normie or normie adjacent people might be willing to be your friend, even if you have what they find to be offensive beliefs. So it might be good to kind of feel it out with people at first. But you do have to be careful with that. You can't let it go on for too long. You don't want to mask for months or for years and then slowly reveal your true self over time. That's how people end up in a messy divorce or a really bad friendship dissolution where the other person tries to sabotage your reputation on social media or within your larger social group. So it's really a balancing act, and it's really difficult to get it right. And I'll go ahead and admit right now, I don't know how to do it. I can't get it right. I pretty much, at this point, I just fully mask around everybody all the time, even my family to some extent, which sucks, but I mean, the alternative is probably worse. I always get punished one way or another. There's always some negative repercussions whenever I do actually speak my mind. So I just fully mask these days. I do have this YouTube channel where I can show my true self, although even that, I'm sure it'll come back to bite me eventually. I mean, it already did, kinda, when my mom found my videos, but, whatever. I don't really care that much what she thinks. As long as she doesn't kick me out of the house, it's whatever. And even if she did, I could always go stay with my dad, so, I don't really care about that. It's not really a big deal. But yeah, it is a painful existence sometimes. Not every free thinker is destined to be alone forever, but I do think that every free thinker struggles significantly with being accepted. And I'm sure the average conformist normie also struggles with acceptance to some degree, but I really don't think they have it quite as bad. And their struggle is different. So I'm just talking about the unique ways that intelligent, free-thinking men struggle in this video. So far, I've mostly just been talking about friendship and platonic relationships, but everything I've been saying, all of it is even worse when it comes to dating. If you think it's hard to make friends with another guy as a free thinker, then I'm sure you can imagine how hard it is to attract women. And there could even be some times when a woman is attracted to you, but maybe she would never admit that to anyone, and she would not be willing to actually date you just because she's afraid of what other people might think. Generally speaking, I think women tend to be more prone to conformity. They place more value on being accepted than men do. So it's extremely difficult to find a woman to date you, even if you're maybe a little bit above average in looks, because a lot of women just are not willing to date a guy that doesn't have the quote-unquote correct opinions. Unless, of course, you're like 6'5" with a chiseled jawline and a full head of hair. If you look like that, then you could probably be an open supporter of the Austrian with the small mustache, and women would still throw themselves at you. But for most of us, even if you're above average, women will be very hesitant to give you a chance if they think that their social circle won't approve of what you believe in. And again, you can mask, you can pretend to have all of the socially acceptable opinions, and you might have some success doing that. But that's not a good long-term solution. Nobody can maintain that for the entirety of a 30, 40, 50-year relationship, or even just for a few years, or even a few months. I think for most people, it's hard to just totally hide your true self with somebody that you're that close to for any extended period of time. Even if you could technically do that, most people would feel guilty about it, or if nothing else, it's just super exhausting. But I don't blame a man for doing that if that's what he's got to do to not be alone. Even if you're an extreme introvert, nobody wants to be alone all the time. I think it's just human nature to desire some amount of validation and human connection. I mean, it's more of a need, really. I don't care who you are. You need some level of human acceptance to stay sane. And I mean that figuratively, of course. You probably won't actually go insane, but it will hurt. You know, you'll be depressed, you'll lose motivation. Being chronically alone is really tough. I can tell you that firsthand. The only thing I think that's always kept me going and that keeps me going to this day is that at least I do have some family that love me. A lot of people don't even have that, though. And I've been depressed. I have certainly had my struggles. So I can imagine for a lot of men out there that are intelligent, free-thinking, critical thinking, smart men, I can imagine it's really freaking tough out there. It's tough enough for me, and I'm not even what you would call truly alone. So for those of you that are just truly alone in this world, I mean, I wish there was something positive I could say to encourage you, but there's not really any silver lining. I guess some of you might be able to use your intelligence to your advantage in the business realm. But even then, I think social skills are probably more fruitive than smarts when it comes to business success, in most cases. So the cold hard truth is just that usually, if you are actually a man that thinks for himself, there is a strong likelihood that you probably struggle a lot when it comes to dating and relationships. And even if you do have some success, it's always cursed in a way because you probably only achieved that success by essentially playing a character in social situations. And that's a volatile situation. And this is mostly a problem that free-thinking men face, by the way, at least talking about dating. Women have high value on the dating marketplace just by virtue of being a woman, even if they look like a freaking ogre. So most free-thinking women aren't going to face the same struggles. They'll still have additional struggles that normie women don't have, but it's not the same as it is for a man. So if you want to see more content like this, I have lots of videos where I talk about male loneliness and the unbalanced dynamics between men and women, as well as the unbalanced dynamics between normies and critical thinkers. I also tell personal stories from my life at times, so if that's something that interests you, please check out my channel or just click on the suggested video on the screen right now. And thank you for watching.